Give us an idea of how many dealerships are in your group and maybe how many cars you guys are selling per year.
14 stores, 14 rooftops. 4 of the dealerships are in Ohio, 10 are in Michigan. We represent a lot of different brands: Chevy, Buick, GMC, Airstream RV, Chrysler, Jeep, Dodge, and Ram, Hyundai, Kia, Genesis.
What fascinated you about the car business? Do you remember?
When I was 15, I started selling cars. I went to Northwood, studied business and automotive marketing. Look at every opportunity and see if there's something there. You should find what your passion is in life. Just because you go to Princeton or Harvard doesn't mean you're guaranteed to be successful. You can't win the World Series without swinging the bat.
So my guest today is one of the biggest leaders in the automotive sales industry in really one of the biggest ones in the United States. And so with me today, I've got Jay Feldman. Jay, thanks for jumping on with me today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. Looking forward to the discussion.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So before we jump into your story and how you've been able to build this empire that you have today, what is, give us an idea of how many dealerships are in your group and maybe how many cars you guys are selling per year.
So, Brandon, right now, currently we have 14 stores, 14 rooftops. In 2021, we'll probably sell 34,000 cars.
Wow.
All retail. We're in Ohio and Michigan. Four of the dealerships are in Ohio, 10 are in Michigan. And, we represent a lot of different brands: Chevy, Buick, GMC, Airstream RV, Chrysler, Jeep, Dodge, and Ram, Hyundai, Kia, Genesis. And then we have a standalone pre-owned lot that's very successful in Waterford.
Right off 59 there, right?
Yeah.
Love it. Love it. I'm always curious, Jay, the size of your company. I'm always curious how it got started. I actually read one of the interviews you did with digitaldealer.com, and you mentioned in there being very fascinated with, watching your dad being in the business when you were young. What if you were to go back, what fascinated you about the car business? Do you remember?
Well, actually, probably, I always was fascinated about the business, just listening to the stories my dad would tell. My dad was a Chevrolet dealer as well. And, my dad grew up pretty poor, didn't graduate high school, and owned his first dealership when he was 32 years old. He went from selling cars to owning the dealership. And he and the used car manager bought the dealership together. And, and then from there, he went on to take on a new opportunity. It was a new point in Novi, Michigan, and GM had given him a new Chevrolet franchise. And he took a brand new opportunity in a very tough time, 1981, and interest rates were 22%, and so he was able to survive all that and have a successful business. So I was always fascinated that here's my dad that never graduated high school and didn't have any real wherewithal, was able to have his own business. And so, but I always liked, it was like a snow day at school or whatever, when I was 10 years old, 11 years old, I would go to work with my dad. I was that's what I wanted to do. I didn't want to sit home and play with my friends. I wanted to go to, hang out with my dad at work, and, whether it was like washing a car or sweeping a floor or whatever. So I was always, I don't know why, that's what I like to do. And when I was 15, I started selling cars and in the summer, in between school. And I just loved it. And then I went to Northwood, studied business and automotive marketing. And then I graduated from the NADA Dealer Candidate Academy. And when I was 19 or 20, I took over as a finance manager in my dad had a little Chevy store in Milford across from the Milford High School. And it was like a 25 car a month operation. And he really wasn't there a lot because it wasn't really that exciting. I'm not even sure why he bought it, but he really didn't like it, candidly. And so he was thinking about selling it right about the time that I started working there full time out of college. And I remember coming home one day and saying, "Hey, I don't think you should sell it. I think can be something." And so he said, "Hey, go for it." He didn't really have a big investment. And so I turned that thing around and had it making money right away and grew the business. And then he and I went partners, and that was we opened our store together in 1996 on M59 in Highland, and kind of the rest is history. And then I ended up doing my own deals and buying stores and had some new opportunities from some manufacturers. And then I started some guys that, weren't doing well during the GM wind down process. And then, just different, I always looked at, look at every opportunity and see if there's something there. And so here we are today, went from 25 cars a month to, 3,500 cars a month. And the next year we'll probably do 1.4 billion in revenue.
Wow. I mean, it's incredible. And Jay, I mean, that's just an amazing story. And I can just feel from you that you're just getting started. And we're going to unpack that a little bit more later in the interview. You said you started selling cars around 15 years old. Do you remember what it was like, or do you remember selling your first car, or what kind of car that was?
Well, actually, it was funny that how the story really went was that I was supposed to shadow a seasoned salesperson, because who's going to buy a car from a 15-year-old, right? And I remember doing that for a day, and I'm like, I can't sit at this desk anymore and watch this. I'm going to go grab a customer myself and just sell a car.
Yeah.
And I remember the sales staff wasn't real thrilled about it, because they thought I'd be kind of blowing through customers, but I didn't care. So I can't remember the first person I sold a car to, but I remember it's pretty exciting. And then I remember the following summer, I was the top salesperson in the dealership at 16. So
it's incredible.
I just loved it. Every single person that walked in was a buyer. I never, cherry picked or said this guy's, or this lady's, wasting my time or whatever.
Sure.
I had the mindset, if they're here, they're buying a car.
You never judge a book by its cover, especially in sales, right? So I would agree with you 100%. So going back to Northwood for a second. So you go off to Northwood, there's a big debate, and I think you've got big people like the Elon Musks of the world coming out and saying, maybe the value of a college education isn't what it used to be. Looking back on it, right or wrong, good or bad, did what you learn at Northwood, do you feel like it set you up to succeed in the car business, or do you feel like you learned more kind of on the job?
I would definitely tell you on the job. I think that, when you look at our educational system, and my son is a junior at the Ross School of Business at University of Michigan. And I would tell you that, I'm a firm believer in education. I think it's really important. But at the same time, I also believe when you listen to people say that vocational education is much better than a traditional college education, I totally think that's realistic. I think that dealing with people every day and real life experiences, and the other thing is, along with that, is I tell my son this, and I tell my daughter this: you're never going to be successful at something that you don't like. Like, if you're passionate about it, it's hard not to be successful at something that you love. But if you don't love something, and for example, I say to my son all the time, listen, if you get in the car business, that's up to you. I'd love it, but I would hate for you to be in it and you don't like it. You should find what your passion is in life. And sometimes when you're young, it's hard to know the answer to that. I was lucky enough, because I knew that right from the beginning. When I was a little kid, I knew that that's what I wanted to do. Yeah. But not everybody does. I know people that have, I know somebody that went to medical school and then went to law school.
Wow.
And now has a major real estate empire, and they're a doctor,
right.
Medical. So, obviously they found out after, graduating from medical school that medicine wasn't their passion. Right.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, not to digress there, but I would tell you that definitely 100% on the job training is more important than anything. But again, I would parallel that with going to school too, and hopefully going to school for what what you want to do with your career.
Yeah, fair enough. And maybe it's better spent to talk about this later, but I am just kind of curious. Do you think the value of a college education looking forward in 20, 30 years will be what it was when you grew up and went to college? Because there was a lot of pressure. There was a lot of society pressure for guys, your age and my age. You got to go to college. You got to go to college. You got to go to college. Now you've got people, again, like yourself and the Elon Musks of the world and Warren Buffett going on stage saying, man, I don't know how valuable that is. To your point, if you're not going to college for what you're going to do you think the value of a college education and $70,000, $80,000, $100,000 for these kids to go to school is going to be worth it moving forward?
Well, that's a really good question. I will tell you that even, my son, going through his experience at college, and he's at, one of the best business schools in the country. Some of the stories that he's told me, he started out at NYU for a semester in New York, and some of the crazy, stories you tell me that some of these professors would, the things that they would do, the antics in class and stuff, it does make you wonder. I think that it's hard to say what's going to happen 30, 40, 50 years from today, but there's no question about it. To see somebody get in debt, for $100,000 a year, obviously if you're going to be a doctor, we know that that's imperative that you go to medical school. But and I think to be a lawyer, you need to go to law school, right? So
that's right.
But to be an entrepreneur,
right?
Maybe having some basic. I don't know that you need to have a $1 million education. One thing I said to my son when he was applying for colleges, this will probably answer your question better than anything. I said you could take every single experience in life, whether it's somebody that didn't go to college. There's examples of people being ultra successful that never went to college. There's people that went to medical school and ended up becoming having a company that is ultra successful, unrelated to medicine. There's people that went to community college. They're ultra successful in their world. There's people who went to Harvard and are unsuccessful in their world. There's examples of good and bad, no matter what, just because you go to Princeton or Harvard doesn't mean that or the Ross School of Business doesn't mean you're guaranteed to be successful. And just the same as if you didn't go to college or you didn't go to a college for a glamorous college, doesn't mean that you're destined for a failure either.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, you nailed it. That's exactly, Jay, my exact belief system. From a philosophical standpoint, you and I see that very, very, very similar.
Actually, looking at my business and most auto dealers,
right,
probably the vast majority of our really successful managers probably didn't go to college. And I would say that they probably have an income level on par with attorneys and doctors and all kinds of entrepreneurs. And so I think there's no one size fits all in life.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And again, I agree with you 100%. Being an entrepreneur myself and a guy that specializes in the art and science of sales, I would rather, if I had a dealership or if I was one of your general managers, it's like, give me a kid out of high school and I'm going to groom them personally with every conversation. I believe the education I could give somebody from a sales perspective, I always make the argument that it might be better, more valuable than if they went to get a college education. So maybe that's better suited for the golf course or another. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I like to tell, I say two things to like people like my son's age or my daughter's age. One, you'll never do something successfully that you don't like. You got to be passionate about it.
Yeah.
And there's an old saying that money doesn't lead, it follows.
That's right.
And then the other thing is I always say life is a contact sport. So never miss a moment to make a connection or, say hello to somebody. Or if you think maybe in my business, like for example, a guy might be thinking about selling his dealership or one day selling his dealership or whatever. If you don't reach out and say hello or make the connection, it's like you can't win the World Series without swinging the bat.
Love it. Great point. Great point. So you leave Northwood, you start your career. What were some of those early challenges, Jay, when you opened your first store? Can you remember back, maybe having some thoughts to say, man, this is maybe harder than I thought it was. Do you remember any of those details or early challenges?
Yeah, probably because I was 25 when I owned my first Chevrolet store.
Sure.
So probably age, the vast majority of the people that work for me were a lot older than me.
Yeah.
And so I think, trying to get them to respect you, earning their respect was a big deal. And let's face it, a lot of them probably were in the business a lot longer than I was too.
Right.
And doesn't necessarily, 1 year's experience, 25 years experience is 1 year's experience times 25 sometimes. So,
sure.
But that was probably the biggest challenge. And obviously, when I first opened my first store, it was a big deal. It was scary. I was awake at night with one eye looking at the ceiling, and it was definitely concerning. I went from a little store in a safe place, limited expenses, to going to this brand new facility that at the time seemed like a monstrosity to me.
Right.
I had twice as many employees, and I literally went out in front. I was counting cars that were driving by, thinking like, hope there's enough traffic coming by this place to be successful.
It's a great point. That's like the life of an entrepreneur, right? everybody says they want to be in business and work from themselves, but then they open their business. And to your point, you nailed it. I think it's hard to sleep for the first couple of years being an entrepreneur. That makes a ton of sense. And so you said something else that I think is really important for entrepreneurs that will watch this in the future, Jay. And you said earning their respect, and you're talking about leadership. And I'm curious, what is your leadership philosophy over the years? Obviously you're leading a large organization, a large team. When you think of leadership, what does that mean to you?
Well, one thing that I always did is I always delegated. And if you're going to hire somebody, make sure you hire a good leader and let them lead. If you're going to interfere with everything they do, then you hired the wrong person.
Love it.
And so I've always been cognizant of, giving people enough rope to, hang themselves, so to speak, and get the job done. And, and then the other thing is when you're disappointed in somebody, let them know, but in a way that they're not going to quit either. You don't want somebody to quit and stay.
Right.
You want one of my key people had a saying, you got to put enough change in the meter if you're going to take the change out. And so if you want to give somebody a discussion about, if you're not happy about something, they need to also hear that the things that you're happy about with them too, as well. Like, hey, you're amazing at this, but I got to tell you, I'm really disappointed in this. Sure. And you get a lot more credibility with people when you do that.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. That's great advice. Great advice. Something we say around our company is, feedback is a gift. And if your leader is giving you feedback, it's because they care. So I love that. I love that a lot. So when your company and your leaders go out there and hire salespeople or operations people, what is the culture at the Feldman Group as it relates to hiring talent?
Well, one thing we do is, what I try and do is I always look at resumes and I say to myself, okay, well, does this person have 10 jobs?
Right.
And you interview them, they tell you why all those 10 people they worked for were, this guy was bad because of this lady was bad because of that, this company was terrible at this. So I try and, I really try and find people that haven't moved around. And also we try and groom people from within. So we have salespeople that are general managers today. We have, service porters that are service managers. We have service managers that are service directors. And so we really try and prefer to, because, what the old saying goes, that the devil that you do know is better than the devil that you don't know. And so I would rather promote from within. And, you can't, listen, we've grown a lot, so you can't always have everybody ready to jump in the next position as you're growing. So you do have to be selective. But again, if you're going to hire somebody from outside, do your due diligence, make sure that somebody hasn't moved around, make sure they're leaving their current job for the right reasons. And so that's it. And then also give them the tools. In our case, it's, we give them inventory, we give them money to market the dealership. We, give them independence to hire and fire people and train people. And, we give them all the tools so that they can be successful. I don't want them looking at me and saying, hey, the reason why I couldn't sell cars and have a successful store is because I didn't have any inventory. You didn't give me any advertising dollars. You didn't let me hire anybody. I wanted to hire this used car manager, but you wouldn't pay them. I mean, those aren't the stories. Those aren't the things you want to hear. The other thing we do in our organization before COVID was we would have a quarterly lunch every single dealership every quarter. And we'd set up tables and chairs everywhere in the showroom or in the service drive. And we'd cater food in for everybody. And I'm talking every employee from the bottom to the top. And we'd talk about the business in that store. How many cars are we selling? How many service ROs are we writing? Show our commercials that we're running. We would, recognize people on their birthdays. We give out gift cards. We'd have other employees recognize other employees for, hey, I'm Joe. I work in the body shop, but Brandon, who's in sales, oh my God, the guy's been amazing. He helps me out with everything, blah, blah, blah. And so I just want to, I think we should give him $100 gift card for being a team player in the organization. So we do a lot of those kind of things. And we talk about, hey, we just acquired this store in Clarkston and here's the, the former name of it. Here's what we want to do. We're going to build a new facility, blah, blah, blah. And so, so that everybody in the organization feels they're a part of the organization. And so, somebody that works in the service department says, I don't know anybody in sales. I never interact with those guys. Or, hey, I don't know. I just make $10 an hour. I don't know anything about the company. How many cars do we sell? I didn't know we sell Jeeps.
Right.
We don't want to have that kind of stuff going on in our organization. We want everybody to feel part of the team, whether they're in Ohio or they're in, Michigan.
That's phenomenal, Jay. I mean, I think that's just a reflection, obviously, of your leadership and your leaders, the culture that you've built at your company. How many team members or employees total at the company? Roughly?
About 100.
That's phenomenal. Phenomenal. So you partner with Mark Wahlberg, right? I think this was pretty exciting stuff. How did that come about, and what's that been like so far?
So that goes back to my saying, life is a contact sport.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of, I look back, I think it's a little bit funny. I remember, I remember I was at a friend's house. Mark was was in Detroit filming Transformers, and a friend of mine became pretty friendly with Mark and the cast, and so he invited my wife and I over to his house for dinner, for barbecue in the summer. And when I got there, Mark was standing there in the foyer, and he was actually leaving. And so my friend said, "Hey, this is Mark J." And he shook my hand. He was very polite and whatever, but he was on his way out the door to go back to the hotel and go to sleep. It was like 7:00. And if you know Mark's regimen, he's like, he goes to bed early and gets up early. Sure. So he was very nice. I mean, whatever, but he would have never remembered me ever. I mean, if I never met him again, he'd never know who I was.
Okay.
And so I think it was like a day or two later, I was watching A&E, and I was watching the show Wahlburgers, and I called up my buddy and I said, "Hey, I don't know if you know, but Mark's got a burger joint in Hingham, Massachusetts. And he's, they got this TV show and everyone's like, well, I didn't know." So I said, "Boy, you should see if we can get the rights," because my friend owned a restaurant in Birmingham. I said, "You should see if we get the rights for Wahlburgers for Birmingham. Maybe we can, franchise it or something." And he's like, "Okay, I'll call him." Next, 3 days later, we flew to Hingham and met Mark and his mom, and
wow.
Rick Ventura, the CEO of Wahlburgers at the time, was actually from Michigan. And we had lunch, and, we kind of hit it off, and then we ended up staying for dinner, and 5 bottles of wine later, we became good friends. And then I remember we decided we're going to partner in the Wahlburgers in Cleveland, in downtown Cleveland, in the Jack Casino. So I remember since that time, I visited Mark on a movie set in Boston, and we ended up hanging out that day, and we started talking. He's like, "Tell me about your career and like how you got in the car business." Kind of similar conversation you and I are having.
Sure.
And next thing you know, he said, "Hey, I always wanted to own a car dealership." So I said, "Well, maybe we should buy one together." And I said, "Hey, would you put your name on it if we did?" And he's like, "Sure." I said, "Okay." So I remember him calling me about 4 months later. And he's like, "Hey, thought we were buying a car dealership." I'm like, "Well, it's not like opening a restaurant. You can't just open one up on Main and Main. We either have to buy somebody out or whatever." Sure. So I remember a broker called me about this store in Columbus, Bobby Lehman Chevrolet. So I would have never thought to go to outside of Michigan to own it. I really wasn't thinking in terms of being out of state. Okay. But I had an operator that I knew in Canton, Ohio, that I knew of. And so my light bulb went off, and I thought, wait a minute, I have a really good operator. And then we put Mark's name on it. Maybe it's not that far away. So I went and looked at the dealership. This was on a Friday. I told my guys on the way home, I said, "We're buying that store. I can almost guarantee you." So I had a deal done by Monday morning. And that was 2000. That was in 2017. And we opened in July, end of July of 18. By the time, it's a long story, but there was a lot of family drama on the ownership of the dealership. So they finally, the court approved it, and we ended up buying it. And then since then, we have a bunch of other Wahlburgers we own in, Ohio, Michigan, and Georgia. And then we went partners and went and invested in a fitness company with Mark, F45.
That's right.
Yeah. And then since then we bought 3 more dealerships. We bought the Buick GMC store across the street from the Chevy store. We bought the RV Airstream dealership. And then 14 miles away, we bought at what was at one time the largest Chevrolet store in Ohio, Jack Maxton Chevrolet, which is now Mark Wahlberg Chevrolet of Worthington. So now we have a pretty sizable. So we're the biggest Chevrolet dealer in Columbus now, and yeah, it's been fun.
That's incredible. I mean, what a great story, Jay. I mean, that is so cool. And it just goes back to your philosophy of life is a contact sport. And it's so true. Had you never shook his hand, and none of that would have probably ever happened, to your point earlier. So that's really, really cool. So
yeah, I have to say that probably the wildest thing is when we did our PR announcement for the first store, 475 million people saw it worldwide.
Wow.
And then of course, to have Mark on the Ellen show talking about my partner, Jay Feldman, and blah, blah, blah. And then doing a commercial. I don't know if you saw the commercial he and Ellen did.
I don't think so. I got to check that out.
Yeah, go on YouTube. It's pretty cool.
I will absolutely check that out. So let's transition and talk a little bit about technology. And, I think there are investors from all over the world plugging billions of dollars into technology to try to interrupt many industries. And so I'm curious to kind of understand, do you think technology interrupts the automotive industry from the standpoint of the consumer buying a car, potentially, not having to go to a dealership one day? They just buy it online and it shows up at their house. What is your thought on that?
I think it's very possible. I think it's already happening. Vroom and Carvana and all these companies are proving that. But fortunately, we're talking about an expensive purchase. People are passionate about buying a car. They do like to pick things out. There's, they like to smell the leather, like to, drive the vehicle. Is there going to be a percentage of our business that's literally going to go that way? No question about it. Do I think it's going to be entirely like that? No. But again, our business has changed a lot since I've been in the car business. It's changed a lot. It's going to change. There's no question about it. It's already changing. It's changed since I've been in it. Change is inevitable. Yeah,
it makes total sense. I mean, I'm in the real estate space. It's the same thing here, right? People are saying, is there going to be a need for a real estate broker in the future? To your point, I like how you said that there's a segment of the marketplace for everything. So that's interesting.
I mean, look at even the real estate, the office space business.
Right.
Look at even last March, February. Who would have ever thought that companies like Quicken and all these companies would find out that their employees were just as productive at home as they were in an office?
Incredible.
That you're paying millions of dollars. In fact, they found out they actually had more productivity without office space.
Yeah.
And the ironic thing is, they're one of the largest office space owners in Detroit.
Yeah.
And so now what do you do?
Right. Dan's got billions of dollars of real estate, right? So yeah, that's a really good question. That'll be interesting to see, Jay, what Dan does with all that real estate. Cause you're right. I mean, my wife works at Quicken. I grew up at Quicken in the beginning of my career. And it was always about being in the office, having a strong culture inside the office. And you're right. I mean, they're breaking record after record, everybody at home. So it's really, really interesting to see. So as you look forward to growing, your business, what does the future hold? What does the vision look like? Where do you want to take your company?
Well, we have 14 locations now. Fortunately, they're all very successful. And it's fun. The business is fun. We're in a great position where we don't have to do anything. We can, sit and just sell cars. We have a pretty good footprint now. All of the stores that I own are relatively large stores. And so we will probably grow selectively over the next couple of years. We did 4 acquisitions in 2020, which is a lot.
Yeah.
But this year we'll probably I'm sure we'll do at least one. I look at stuff all the time, but I'm very selective. Like, I don't buy a store just to buy a store and put my name on it, because those are no fun after you own them.
Yeah.
And we try and buy stores that are, have a path to, 100 million in revenue at least.
Okay.
Because they're easier to staff. We can hire people to take that business and turn it into their own business. So I try and stay away from really small stores. I mean, it's not to say I wouldn't buy a small store if I thought it could be a big store, but chances are, we're looking at things the other thing is I try and find stores that are mismanaged, and have, where we can build value, by building the business, but also build the value of that business so that, one day down the road, if we ever sold or whatever we did, it would be, a more valuable business than what we bought. So, but in that, so I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say. We'll probably just keep growing selectively one at a time. I didn't intend on buying 4 stores in 2020. It's just I happen to have, basically, 2 really good. One was a 2-star store. 3 really good deals all at one time. One was a 2-store deal, but it just happened to pop up at the same time, and they all made sense. So,
it's exciting. That's real exciting. Yeah. I mean, you got a great company. It seems like you got great momentum. You got a great brand, so that is exciting to watch. And so I guess lastly, Jay, before I let you go, if you could go back to your younger self at Northwood, what advice would you give yourself knowing what you know now?
I wished, I don't know. You can't go backwards, Right. I think everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
There are times here, I'll say this to you. It's interesting. There's times in my career when I was younger, and I had some friends of mine that I grew up with that were at the time much more successful than I was. And I was like, wow, I'd like to be how they are. And then you got to be patient, because you find out that then my success was bigger than theirs at one point, and then things, it ebbs and flows, and then
sure.
I have some friends that are a lot younger than me that have much bigger businesses that, they started from scratch and are, some different industries, whatever. So, you always say the grass is greener on the other side. I wish I could have done this. I wish I could have that. But if you stay the course and you just keep growing your business positively one day at a time, one person at a time, one deal at a time, then you wake up one day and you're like, wow, I had a heck of a career.
Phenomenal.
But I don't know that I don't know. I mean, like I said, everything happens for a reason.
It's great advice. I mean, and I agree. I mean, the grass is green where you water it. That's what we say in my leadership team.
Yes.
Instead of getting distracted with all the shiny objects, water the grass where you're at, and you can grow a great career. And so, Jay, you're a huge inspiration, man. It's entrepreneurs like you that motivate me to continue growing as an entrepreneur. And so this is a lot of fun. I really enjoyed this. I think people will really enjoy this. So if they want to learn more about, your business and the Feldman Auto Group, where can they go?
Hey, thank you very much, Brandon. Obviously, talking to you, I can tell you have a ton of positive energy, and I can see why you're successful as well. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. I really thank you again. And can people go to feldmanauto.com to learn more about your guys' business, or
yes.
Instagram,
yeah.
Facebook?
Yeah, we're on all of it. Yeah.
I love it.
And one of these days we'll have to meet in person for lunch.
I can't wait. I cannot wait. So, Jay, thank you so much. Happy New Year. Best of luck to you at 2021 and beyond.
You too, Brandon. Take care. Thank you.
All right, Jay. Take care.
See ya.